All right. Welcome, everyone, to our newest edition of After Hours.
What's going
We are
on,
all,
guys? Good to see you.
Coming to you, obviously, not from the office. We're doing what everybody else is doing and working from home and social distancing, as they say, and trying to stay safe, but also still trying to do some work and trying to keep the content going for the site so everybody can stay connected. And this is the new way we stay connected these days. We actually get to have a drink with our friends. So cheers to everyone.
Hey,
Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers. Great to see you guys. That's the hardest part of this social distancing is not seeing your friends and the guys you work with and everybody together, and the camaraderie kind of makes it hard, but we're making the best of it, and hopefully this will help for all of us. We're going to do a quick episode today about complications, one of my favorite subjects, something we talk about in the office all the time. So we'll just kind of dive right into it. Favorite complications, or maybe first complications we ever got involved with? I know Thanos loves to start off, so let us rip, Jeff.
Well, my favorite complication, we'll start with a wrist check. So I'm wearing I thought about this, my second most complicated watch. My most complicated watch is a Breitling Aerospace, which Jason has one as well, which is widely known as the best Breitling has ever made.
made.
Yep. So my watch is a PAM 233. This is one of the first in-house movements they made. So it has an 8-day power reserve indicator at the bottom here. You can see which now the top.
Linear power reserve. Love that.
Linear power reserve, which I think is much better than a half moon, or there's a lot of different ways you can show power reserve. But I love the linear power reserve across the 6 o'clock. I have a day-night indicator, GMT hand, a very small GMT hand, which I think that's important. The balance of the GMT hand is very important, and then also obviously the date. So I have a fairly complicated watch, and GMT is my favorite complication. It's a great way to complicate a watch without making it look too silly. And I think Jason would agree that the big orange hand is where it's at when you talk about a GMT.
Although it looks better on the polar dial, but
there you go, Jason. Jump in on that one.
Good.
But yeah, no, I mean, I would agree. The GMT is an awesome complication. Specifically, Manjos has the Batman, the Explorer 2, Rolex GMTs specifically are pretty darn robust. So when we're talking about actually traveling with the watch, it's handy to have it be durable. Sometimes you get these GMTs and they're in dress watches and a little bit more finicky. So if you're going to pack it, then that's one thing. But the idea of a GMT is that it's on your wrist at one time zone and then goes to another. So the durability is there. I don't know. I like a lot of different complications. Manjos is, I think, favorite's a chronograph. Not my favorite complication. I like stuff I can use. I mean, I like stuff that serves you on a daily. So maybe a little bit the unsung hero of complications, power reserves, sub-second hand, stuff like that, where you see it every day and it works every day, but it's not necessarily a repeater or something crazy, But
sub-second.
I like the stuff that works well.
No.
Yes, it is.
But it's a nice display. Go ahead, Callahan.
So my favorite complication happens to be a chronograph as well. The first watch I ever sold with complication was the Frank Mueller Master Banker GMT. So multiple time zones, very cool watch.
3-time zone, love that.
3-time zones, great watch. Probably their most, I would consider probably the most iconic piece from that era, or that generation of Frank Mueller watches. And then, I just love chronographs, manual line chronographs, automatic. It works for me. What?
I'm partial to manuals myself, but I would agree with you, chronographs.
Yeah.
I do also love complications that are associated with the brand, like that Master Banker.
Yes.
It's truly a Mueller complication, 3-time zones, all off the crown. Great stuff. What do you got for us?
For me, it's a little bit tough. I do like cleaner watches a little bit. I'm a big fan of, we were talking about Ulysse Nardin complications, power reserve, first and foremost. I think that was the first complication. I was like, well, this is super useful next to a date, right? A power reserve. Actually, if you have a few watches in your collection, it's kind of good to know where you're leaning. Especially
absolutely.
If you have a manual wound watch. And I think the way that they laid it out in a lot of their pieces is really good. But I do love an annual calendar. 5146G from Patek is probably my favorite. The ancestor to the first annual calendar that they made, the 5036, is just a sweet piece, does the trick, and good memories. I've sold quite a few of those, and I love them very much.
All right, what other brands do we like in complications? I know I associate specific brands with complications, so I know we're big Journe guys. What does everybody think of on Journe?
The resonance, obviously, sort of the namesake, and I think of
that's what I think of is the resonance. I mean, it just.
I think
I
of
just
it
remember him presenting that to me
yeah.
and trying to figure out if this thing's actually going to work.
But then everything that Journe sort of was chasing and what he wanted to do, the Optimum, I sort of like, I guess it was more of a connection with the watchmaker. Like I understood what he was trying to do with it. You know what I mean? And so that's why it comes back to me. He was like literally trying to figure out a way to make the most accurate, conventionally accurate watch he could possibly come up with. I was like, I get it. So to me, that's the one that I think of when I think of.
And he's always been
Journe.
an accuracy guy, because I think of tourbillons too. His original tourbillon is all running all through this series. Yeah. And again, same thing was the accuracy thing. I hate tourbillons in general, but I have a super soft spot.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree.
Tourbillon
with John
Maker's complication, because it's like, I guess it's like like an achievement for them, right? So Journe's first watch was a tourbillon. If you visit his factory in Geneva, you walk past the boutique, there's a little safe there. They go, this is where the tourbillon is kept. This is his watch. But I mean, Jason has an idea. I know what his thoughts are on Journe, and let him go for it. But I mean, one thing that I think we've realized, just chatting about this stuff, is that Journe is a complication watchmaker, right? Like he's very creative with his complications, and that's like his thing, is that being a complication watchmaker, right?
Well, just to pick up on what John was saying, the Optimum for me is probably I would say grailish, like higher end complication piece from Journe. I like it better than the Resonance. I think functionality wise and whether or not it's going to work more often than not is a little bit more solid. The thing that I always kind of tell my customers is, when we're talking about Journe, there comes a kind of a break even risk versus reward when we get really high end with the complication stuff, right? You can have something that's simpler, that is just going to work. It's robust, just like any other watch. Or we can get super complicated, and it's not Journe, it's the nature of complications that, they're perpetually moments away from not working. So,
there are some issues. They are definitely a little more finicky than.
So
that's how they're having.
But so for me, the perfect sweet spot. Obviously, I love this. I've said before, the Senograph is my hands down my favorite Journe. I like the platinum black label, sexy as all hell. That's my watch. I think this second, my second favorite piece is probably not one that's super popular opinion, but the Octaloon is probably my second favorite piece. I think you get a tremendous amount of bang for the buck. You get some awesome complication.
Dig that.
You get durability, which some of the more complicated Journes, you have to start figuring, if I'm going to go over 40 grand to jump up to like 60 to 75, do I get the same complication for durability ratio? So the Octaloon for me, it's pretty. It's a little bit dressier. I could see having an Octaloon and a Senograph because they're kind of different animals.
Yeah.
I actually love moon phases too in nature.
Yeah.
So if I can, we could change the topic to the most useless complications, and let's talk about moon phases, because unless you're a sailor, which I don't know any, or you're a werewolf, why would you ever need a moon?
I love having a moon phase. I can answer that question. I am not a werewolf, I promise you.
I don't know.
But I always set my moon phase because I like to see when a full moon is, because I've spent, a lot of years in retail, and the crazies come out when it's a full moon. And it's nice to know that maybe it's a full moon and your wife's just not crazy this week. It's just the moon.
So I have a question for you. Are you able to set your moon phase without going to the internet?
Of course not.
Exactly.
But there's something fun about getting that little pusher out and figuring out how many days past full you are. This is the whole thing about winding boxes and stuff. I hate them.
Listen,
I want to play with my wife.
I have the complete counter to Josh's argument
here.
It's
1980, okay? You have a long, crazy hair, like you're playing in a rock band, okay? All right? You may or may not have done some drugs. Who knows? You have a moon phase on your wrist. How do you set that watch?
You just need to know the last moon phase. It's not that hard.
Exactly. You go to the Farmer's Almanac and you look up the calendar and the moon phases. Come on.
Exactly. You should have a good Farmer's Almanac in your house.
Everybody has it.
It's see the thing. There's the moon face. There's a romantic aspect to the moon face that it's in a dressier watch and it's pretty. So it's the moon face it's a complication that you don't really need. It doesn't do much. 31.5 day rotation. You don't see it do anything really. But same could be said, like it's a complication that's pretty, that you can enjoy. Same thing for a tourbillon. Doesn't do anything really. I mean, we could argue that. There's other complications, that are just.
I hate tourbillons, you know that, but yeah.
Finding something durable. I know that comment was to set Manjos off specifically. He's the only one on this chat that actually likes tourbillons.
So we can say a moon similar to Jason's blazer right there that serves no purpose other than it looks pretty.
It looks pretty,
just to show up everybody.
He's all about looking pretty. I love that. No, again, jumping to tourbillons. I do have a soft spot for Journe tourbillons, but in general, I hate tourbillons. They're useless. I'm not leaving my watch in one position all day like an old pocket watch. Breguets are cool, but
wrist like this all day long.
And they just became so commercialized that everybody had a tourbillon. Chanel had a tourbillon. So Tag Heuer makes a tourbillon. It's like I don't need it.
Is that what you're saying, Manjos?
I lost you there for a second. What'd you say?
So Panerai diving tourbillon is not useful. Is that what you're saying?
It's not terribly useful because I need to flip it over to see it. It's that weird axis one too. It's not even a pretty tourbillon.
Right.
I can't even see it for God's sake because it's rotating on an angle.
Sometimes you time in a
All right,
NASCAR
what other complications do we hate? More fun with the angry stuff.
Hateful well, there's brands that do complications poorly. So like the new overseas dual time with the hand that has the arrow, the dual time arrow that is like the size of the entire watch, where it looks like.
Okay.
Are you familiar with this?
But it's not a bad complication. It's a bad presentation.
It's
exactly
a bad design.
Execution of a great complication. And like every time I look,
because I love a dual time and I like a power reserve.
Right, but there's a bad way to do it, right? Or in terms of the resins, Journe doesn't like it to be called the dual time, but you can certainly use it as a dual time as well. So that actually serves two purposes.
Well, then he actually came out with the other side, a 24-hour dial, which to me is like maybe we should use this one as the dual time. But no,
time zone, right?
It's just a tease. It's just a tease for a little bit.
It's
like,
still not meant for that. Don't do whatever you do. Don't use it that way. But it's to me, what really grinds my gears is not so much the complication, but when it's not done well. I'm not going to lay out specific watches or brands, but GMT hands that wobble when you're setting the watch drive me crazy.
Little play in the gearing there.
Yeah, power reserve indicator that doesn't go full or empty, and it kind of like goes past full or doesn't quite go to empty. Stuff like that, man. It's just like, well, what are we doing? It's like, why are we even doing it? I don't understand. Chronograph. I buy a $15,000 chronograph watch, and when you reset it every fourth time, it doesn't quite line up. What are we even doing?
Well, do you guys remember? I don't know if you guys remember, but when they first introduced the 5960, which was Patek's annual calendar chronograph, it used to, when you reset it, it would boing, and they had to recall them all and remake that part on there because you got that little vibration going on when it was happening. Oops, Q just crashed.
Q fell over.
I'm alive.
Q fell over. Shut off, Q. Can't have any more drinking. But yeah, that was a bad execution. But again, I love the annual calendar chronograph. I also love annual calendars that do windows. I've definitely become more of a window guy than I am the presentation on wheels.
It's also technically much harder to make a watch that everything's done with windows. I mean, now you have all these discs, and they have to move, and it takes up much more power as well. So if they're able to keep the power reserve, which even what about an 8-day power reserve? Does that count as a complication? It does, right? Even if it doesn't have a power reserve.
Look at the Longa 31. I mean, it's amazing. It's a hockey puck, but I mean, I love long power reserves. I like 8 days because I prefer manual. I'm like Callahan, I think. I like manuals. But I mean, a high power reserve manual to me is a great piece.
I mean, because back in the day before, material sciences with the spring rates and stuff like that really came into place, the only way you could do that is just throwing another barrel in there. And then now you have 2 barrels, 2 springs, the watch is thicker, what do you do? So there's a complication in the aspect of how do we make the watch thinner and get the 2 barrels in there. Now you have these crazy, there's brands that power reserves that are longer than this quarantine that we've been
Here's the question.
We don't know that yet, but we're going to test that out. Exactly.
So far.
Not to be in 2 years, by the way. So is an ultra thin watch, is that considered a complication? Like a Piaget?
It is not really a complication, but again, when I first started in this business, everything was about thin. I mean, the Concord Delirium was the hottest thing, it was
1921.
ridiculous amount of things. You literally, if you strapped it on too hard, you could bend the case because it was so thin. And everything was about making ultra thins, Piagets, these super high-end watches had to be, the showing off was ultra thin. And that was something that's super hard to do. And these micro, and then we went the complete other way with these giant watches that made it so much easier to make complications and stuff in. But like, I remember the Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso minute repeater. I mean, you want to talk about packing a repeater into a square case to begin with, and then making it small and reversible. I mean, amazing technical feat that, again, you can buy today for nothing.
Jason's a fan of the thin watches. One of probably your most
best watch that exists in the world.
That's right.
Oh, no.
That Bulgari is a great watch. Not a complication, but a great watch.
Titanium Octo Finissimo.
We did have one of the tourbillons, though, Octo Finissimo. That was pretty amazing.
This week, actually yesterday, sold the black ceramic Finissimo
You're the guy
to a buddy who's seen me wear mine and really liked the watch. So I may at this point have sold more Finissimos than anybody that actually works for Bulgari. But
King Finissimo.
I love the watch. It's a great piece, and if you haven't tried one on, I definitely recommend it. It looks cool in person.
Yeah, they really went outside the box on that one. I love that. I think Q, when we were starting to talk about this series, had my favorite bad complication choice.
What's that?
Do you remember what it was, Q?
The Cartier.
The Cartier.
Yeah, the Cartier golf timer, which I first saw when I was working for a wholesaler.
That was awesome.
And I was like, "What is this? Is this a real watch?" And he's like, "Yeah, you just count the golf strokes on." I was like, "That is like, who's gonna?" First of all, I don't know if you should wear a watch golfing. I've been telling people no, but some people say that you can wear it. But I don't know if
I wear my watch. I do it every time. But I'm wearing a Rolex, not a Cartier pocket.
There you go.
Okay, exactly.
That's the difference.
My best customer always asks me, "Can I wear this watch golfing?" So that's
once.
Rolex always says that the Rolex can do anything you can do.
Wow.
So swim with it, shower with it, dive with it, golf with it. No problem.
Because he just bought a Booker that he wants to wear a watch.
Not a great plan to wear your Booker or your Patek golfing, but
good thing
or your Cartier Pasha. But that was probably the stupidest watch. And back then, like again, late '80s, early '90s, Pashas were super hot, and they did all these wacky complications with them.
I think it's important to acknowledge that while that Cartier, golf stroke piece was not great and not a great idea, Hublot thought it'd be a great idea to resurrect that with the soccer piece, which arguably was even worse because now you pander to, a soccer crowd as opposed to a golf crowd. But
this is a more sporty watch though. So it kind of feel like the Hublot kind of feels more like
because you definitely want to be lugging that Hublot around while you're running around a soccer field, right? I mean,
hey man, it makes you feel like Madonna, so I do it and I make it happen. Okay, I just got to do it.
You and your Hublot. Q
wasn't a good
has
accent,
a
but I
crush
tried.
on that rose gold Oceanographic 8000. That's why.
All day I will wear that watch, and it is a hockey puck. But if you start a fight with me, one smack and you're done.
So we're on complications I hate, and I'm the big Rolex guy, as everybody knows. But someone's got to show me one person who's ever used the Yacht-Master. I mean the
Yacht timer.
Yacht timer. I mean, talk about a watch that nobody can even know how to use. I love it because it's big and chunky gold watch. I mean, it's a great piece, but nobody's using a Yacht 2 to get anywhere.
I've sold I don't even know how many of those watches, a lot. And every single time I sell one, I got to look up how to set it again. It's just zero reason to retain that in your brain whatsoever.
So it's not intuitive at all. And you'll never.
Well, it doesn't even, I refuse to save the information. I don't care.
It's not just a Rolex specific, like Corum did a Yacht timer, I think, or they had the Tides piece. By the way, Tides. just in case you need another complication that means really nothing.
Remember
to anybody.
Krieger's? Hey,
I mean,
very useful for
Krieger?
the woods. Okay?
Krieger tidal chronometer. That was another watch that was hot for a very short time.
Right.
Another really, to touch on the tide thing, another really stupid thing to me was always when there's a moon phase and a tide indicator on the same watch. They're basically doing the exact same thing.
Yep.
So it's, what are we doing?
Hey, not
the same complication.
Actually, the first complicated watch I sold was a Nixon with all the tides in it. Before I could sell automatic watches, so there you go. I just brought back a little bit of memories there.
Like some memories there. Wow.
There are a lot of memories of some bad complications we've sold.
I will say that
yes.
also that the Yacht-Master, while not great, the Yacht-Master 2 with that bezel, I do think that you would not see the Sky Dweller unless that watch preceded it.
Exactly.
So
100%.
The Sky Dweller, as unuseful as the yachting timer is, the Sky Dweller is the most useful and probably the most foolproof movement from Rolex.
I think it's the best watch they do.
It is. It's an amazing piece because I also love the size. And that's what the Yacht 2 kind of broke through that size barrier, that people loved it because it was big, even though they couldn't use the complication. And then the Sky comes out and it's like, hey, annual calendar, that's half the price of what everybody thinks it should be compared to these other brands. I mean, it was just a huge hit. Yeah. But again, it brings us back to annuals, which I love.
The only thing about the Sky Dweller kind of really, again, grinding my gears was that the steel piece came out after everybody dropped all their money on those white gold pieces. And it was just like, what, the dial's a little bit different.
But that's Rolex's method always. I mean, they always bring out
but it was just like, give them
the best
5 years
in gold and then they work their way down, right?
I think the material we're missing here is titanium. If we're going to go water watch, titanium. And if we're going to go Speedmaster, Daytona rather, what better racing material than titanium? I need a 116519 ceramic in full titanium. That'd be awesome.
Well, it's interesting to say because like Rolex has always been very conservative with metals, but they use Tudor to do their testing, and they did the bronze in Tudor. They've done titaniums in Tudor. So I think eventually we might see a Rolex. The first inclination is the deep sea with the case back that's got a titanium piece in it, at least for the pressure they had to handle. Yeah. But I think eventually we will see a new metal. That would be, could you imagine how successful that would be?
One of the coolest, unsung heroes for me is the Ambassador, which actually a lot of people don't know has a titanium mid case for the alarm. So titanium resonates the vibration really well.
Alarm watches is something we didn't cover a lot either. And I love some of the original Jaeger's alarms were great watches. The UN Sonata. I love an alarm watch. I think a mechanical alarm to me is attractive. I love the sound. I love that feeling when it's on your wrist and you get that vibrating. And the Tudor's a great example and a great price.
Yeah.
One of the Panerais that I've been chasing for a long time, and I forget about it every once in a while, is the PAM 98, which is their Radiomir
GMT.
Yeah, and you can feel that one too.
Maybe later on I'll be lowballing some people on eBay for one of those.
Once Josh has another drink, 6 minutes later, he bought a PAM 98.
It's definitely lowball.
No, alarm is another great complication that we didn't touch on.
There's a brand that makes the most complicated watch in the world, right? They claim this, don't they? Every once in a while, they come up with this watch. Does everybody know what I'm talking about?
Nope.
Vacheron. Vacheron makes a watch. They claim it's the complicated watch in the world. No?
Holy who?
Holy Trinity. Not for a long time. Oh, but don't they?
But here's the problem. Here's the problem I have with Vacheron. So we're talking complications. We've talked about a million brands. What is the iconic Vacheron complication? There isn't one. There's nothing that pops to your mind, and that's the problem with Vacheron. The quality's fantastic. They're classic, but nothing pops in your head to say, "Oh my God, Vacheron made."
Yep.
Yeah.
I never thought about that, but that is so true. What pops into your head when you think Vacheron besides overseas?
Yeah, no, and again, it's a yes, a steel sports watch. It's cool, but there's no complication. Like Longa, I can talk about 5 different complications that are awesome. Journe, I can talk about them all. Patek, I can talk about them all. We can go into every brand. Narden, you brought up, was a great point. Some really cool complications. AP, double balance. I mean, there's a million things. Vacheron hasn't. They've just kind of made what everybody else makes. And I think that's why, you know, they don't have the same cachet. They never risked going off in a different way. And Thanos made a great point earlier talking about loving brands that you don't feel like a committee went and made the brand. You think like somebody with some passion went off on a tangent maybe and just did something because it was in his heart to make it. Yeah. And he loved it and he wanted to do it. And it was just a vision he had. And I think that's what we got to get back to on some of these brands. It's like, just don't do what you love and you'll get there.
I think Ulysse Nardin is one of those sleepers, though, because you're right. Like 2-3 years ago, when I first started selling in Alaska, it was 2013. And then if you go into a Ulysse catalog, the first half was like marine chronometers and divers. But then you go in the back of the book, you had Genghis Khan, Irish Striker. I think there was the circus piece.
Like the circus with the bear that would come up.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that stuff.
But the bears moving around.
But what about the erotic watches? Ulysse Nardin, they participate in the erotic watches.
They do.
Is that a complication? If you have
for sure
on a watch, is that a complication?
Yeah.
It is. It moves and things, you know. It's hard to put together.
Yeah. All right, boys. I think we covered what we wanted to cover.
My fourth drink, so I think this might be the end of this episode.
Yeah.
Fourth drink. We're at 38 minutes, so I think we got plenty of ground.